Get that out of the way, nice and before everyone dives in. Right. Hello, folks. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome. Well, I've got lots of note takers joining in. I didn't foresee that. There we go. There we go. Hello, welcome, welcome, welcome. So just gonna give it a few minutes before we sort of fully dive in, folks. So we've got a lot of somehow we've got like 600 signups to this, which is like far and above like what we normally get, which is really exciting. But I'm just going to give it a minute just so that people have a chance to dive in. While we're waiting to kick off, please, like, we're big advocates at OpenOrg of like building some connections and getting some interaction between people. So if you feel like it, say hi in chat, share your LinkedIn profile, connect with each other a little bit. Let us know where you're based, where you're coming, you're joining from. And if you're feeling particularly interested, would love to know like if you've got any like onboarding horror stories to share, given the topic today. I'm sure there's plenty there. Yeah, feel free to share that if you've got something. Just gonna give it a few more minutes, but say hi. I go, lots of folks say hi. Raf, Nadia, you can say hi in chat as well if you want.
Hey everyone, good to see you all. Thanks for joining.
Waiting for the onboarding horror stories now. Or good like stories. If anyone's got like any like amazing experiences around onboarding, that'd be also very cool to see.
I always love the distribution of folks. So it's so nice to see such a good global representation and not just London and South Africa today. So
Yeah.
looking really good.
I am the least exotic one here, I think, today, because you're South Africa, Nadia, and Raf, you in Brazil at the moment?
I am in Brazil at the moment, yes. Have flown over back to Brazil 3 weeks ago now, I think. So yeah, back here now.
I am in Somerset, UK, so it's not quite as exotic, but I like it.
It's getting colder and colder, isn't it?
It is, yeah, it's very, very cold here at the moment,
Yeah,
particularly fun.
yeah.
There we go. Awesome. Thanks for saying hi, folks. We've still got lots of people joining, so I will keep an eye on that as best as possible as we kick off. But we will get started so that we can make the most of the time today. And yeah, thank you to everyone for dialing in and joining and signing up to this. This is again like did not expect the sort of numbers that we've got for this. So clearly, onboarding and AI is like clearly like an interesting topic to folks, and yeah, super excited to dive in. Why are we here? Like onboarding, I always find this really interesting. Like onboarding in theory feels like it should be a process, a topic, initiative, as it were, in any business that should feel like straightforward enough to put in place and to do well. But we speak to a heap of people teams who just don't seem to feel like they got it right or they struggle, and the impact on employee experience, on ramp up time, on retention, just is like super, super clear to see. So it's clearly a problem area for a lot of companies, and maybe that's why we've got so many signups here today as well. So super, super excited to be here. Going to do some intros and let both of these wonderful people intro themselves because I won't necessarily do them justice. But before we go into that, for anyone who's not been to one of these before, I am Adam. I'm co-founder of OpenOrg. Aside from running webinars and events like this every single month, we curate and create a lot of free, awesome resources for folks in the sort of startup, scale up HR space. A lot of those around onboarding, which I will try and share during the call or after the call. So the heap of cool resources and takeaways coming your way after this. And we've also been building the AI powered HR resource and learning library for folks as well, which is our content pass. So if you haven't checked that out yet, come and have a look. It's very, very cool. Loads of cool playbooks and AI tools and super helpful stuff to help you accelerate your work. So come and check that out if you haven't seen us already. But I'd love to just quickly intro both Raf and Nadia to you, so you can say hi. Nadia, are you happy to dive in?
Yeah. Um, hey everyone, so nice to see all of you. I am Nadia Vatalidis, head of people at Doist. Doist is the amazing team behind a world famous app called Doist. We are distributed, global, remote in more than 40 countries in the world, and a tiny team of 100. I say tiny, I come from high scale organizations. So this is one of the smaller ones I've worked for. I have been in distributed global teams for a decade. I love this space. I have a very high transparency bar and open source bar, which is why I love the work Adam and John is doing. And what else can I say? Oh, and I'm always obsessed with talent density and building environments where people don't burn out, right? But can really leverage great tools to do great work in the time that they work.
Awesome. You kept that very succinct, given the incredible experience you've got at previous companies as well. So thank you for joining because but we've been huge fans of your work for a really long time, Nadia, because of the link to transparency and open sourcing and all the amazing stuff that you've done in previous companies. So thank you from us. But also, I know you've done a lot around onboarding, and so yeah, super excited to hear about your experience. Raf, over to you.
Hey everyone, thanks everyone for joining as well. Rafael Guper here, co-founder of UJJI AI. We essentially build AI agents for knowledge management, essentially transforming all of the knowledge that's already existing in businesses, being that in scattered documentation or in people's minds, and transforming that into relevant, consistent, and up-to-date playbooks as well as interactive training. Essentially, I've been in the past 5 years working out how to best help leaders transfer that knowledge that is sitting in their brain or just really scattered across multiple PDFs, PPTs, docs, video recordings, WhatsApp audio notes, anything really, just so that they can help their people hit the ground running and continue to learn as the business develops. So yeah, super excited to be here today and really magnifying the world of knowledge transfer within this big world of new hire onboarding. So yeah, can't wait to dive in.
Awesome, thank you so much. Well, yeah, let's dive in. And I know everyone in the room probably understands the importance of onboarding. I think that we all appreciate this is like an important thing to get right, but we want to just sort of like baseline how important it is, and maybe do that a little bit through any personal experiences either of you have, like good or bad, around this. Nadia, I'm sure you've probably got a few that you can share as well.
Yeah.
Also, just like understand a little bit more about just how vital it is, and why it's such an important topic to you both as well.
Yeah, I'll start with one that a peer shared this week. So one of my peers in the industry that doesn't work with me currently reached out, and she was just like, I'm so frustrated this has happened. She works in the people team, and her tech ops team either forgot or missed that an integration broke to send out an automated email, right, that welcomes someone into a new team. And I've heard this horror story many times, right? Where that new hire is sitting and waiting at their desk and doesn't receive anything, don't know how to log in, need to proactively figure out who to reach out to. There's always the time zone constraint as well. So I think that's one that maybe all of us have heard, where the email never went out. I've got many others. I think one of the other things that I always think about, this is one of those steps that has to be in a process, right? Is when a new hire accepts a job and then nothing happens. And they just sit there and wait and don't know if they're ghosted and don't know what, to me, that's an utter horror story, right? And that has actually happened to me as someone that now runs onboarding and has run it in multiple companies. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I've had that experience myself. I've been like, this is years ago now, but plonked on a desk, given like an old, slightly dusty laptop from the cupboard, and like just left to your own devices for about half a day, and wondering what you need to do next. And that's like day one, and ignoring what's already happened on pre-day one. And it's amazing when you think about like this is such an not an easy thing to map out, but it should be something that people teams are very capable of mapping out, and wider businesses as well. Of like, how do we do it? What do we do? What are those touch points, and how do we get this right? And how do we build a bit of a feedback loop around this to make sure that what we're doing is actually working for people and working well. But the feedback loop thing is definitely one that I find isn't necessarily done regularly by a lot of companies as well. Is that like, have you done anything around that before, Nadia, like to help make understand what you're doing is working or not?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the responsibility isn't just on the people team, but no one tells anyone else that, right? So I think it's like you're DRD of onboarding, and it's like awesome, but you're the hiring manager. So come and sit here by me. Shadow me, experience what you're going to need to do. Here's the things you must do. Often when I hear like a new hire hasn't heard from their manager in the first day, hour, week, like huge red flag that needs a feedback discussion, right? They should be so ready to say, "Oh my goodness, welcome! I'm so happy you're here." So small touch points like that to keep things very human, very engaged, very welcome. It's so scary. It always feels like, I don't know, starting a new school, or it takes you back to traumatic experiences as a kid nearly when you're going into a new company and everything is different. I think there's the feedback loop item, but I also think there's this human error issue, right? Where we rely so much on memory, and we're all allowed to make errors. We're all allowed to forget things, but you can't forget to onboard someone. You can't forget to welcome someone. And I think that's today's discussion. It's about really figuring out, well, what if you don't need to rely on memory? What if you can be so great at what you're doing that you can leverage other things, right? To just not have these horror stories over and over again. We Everyone's talking about high performance. This is such a tough topic. And I think candidates are starting to hold companies accountable for that bar and experience. And if day one or week one or pre-onboarding is flaky, I think that's a horror story in itself, because you're saying you want these top amazing performers to come and work for you and with you. But if you can't onboard them properly, I think that's like red flag number one, right? And how people start not trusting the organization that they thought they're joining.
Definitely. What about you, Raf? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I've been onboarded in a good way and in a bad way in my past life. So I come from the advertising and marketing world, working in advertising agencies. You've probably seen Mad Men back in the day, so you know what I'm talking about. People are always busy. They don't have the chance to actually think about onboarding. It's not even a thing. Like at most, people are like welcoming you in the building, like just really giving you that building pass, giving you a warm welcome and handing over your laptop. And then you're just there and you don't really know what to do. And maybe someone passes by, sees a new face and says hi, whatever. But you really don't know how to even get around that new job, And that is for me a big indicator that the time to value of that employee will be just worse than it could be. And also that there is a good chance that you are just really diminishing the potential that that employee has in actually sticking with you in the long term. So obviously, as I mentioned, I really want to focus on my area of expertise, which is the elements of knowledge transfer. But I think everything about onboarding beyond knowledge transfer is default. Like if you don't have that in place, like and a process that you can actually follow to make sure that someone feels welcome and at least knows how to get around, I think that's a big problem. And obviously with AI here, you can actually start to really just make sure that there is a process that you can really follow whenever someone new is kicking off their works in a new space. But at the end of the day, I really believe that even more than anything else, if you don't have the bare minimum knowledge that you need to really start performing, things will get bad very, very quickly. So Here at UJJI, we have a big mantra, which is anything related to knowledge transfer starts with documentation, great documentation. Obviously, with the world of AI nowadays, it doesn't have to be great. It doesn't have to be perfect. You just need to start. AI will help you fill in the gaps. It will help you enrich everything. And it's very likely that you have that knowledge already in place in that building, because for a business to become a successful business, there has to be processes in place so that efficiency kicks in. So there is a process for everything. It's just a matter of, where is it? Is it still in people's minds, or is it already documented in some shape or form? And what I'm a true believer in nowadays is that no matter where it sits, with AI, we are able to extract that, give form to it and structure, and make sure that people start collecting and absorbing that particular knowledge from day one. And that leads us to see time to value and fast ramp ups in under 1 month, rather than the 6 to 12 months average that we've seen in the industry up until today. So I think this is basically my idea of how to make onboarding the best that it can be, from understanding more about the business, the product, the industry, the market, the competition, everything really from day one. And it's so easy to do that nowadays, guys. It's just really a matter of like doing a brain dump, and having AI do the magic for you. So that's
Yeah.
where I am I'm really bullish about.
Raf, and now that you say documentation, like you're obviously speaking my language as someone that's had to run multiple docs teams in this world of remote and just distributed team. But I want to make a point, maybe for the audience or those listening after. I think there's this assumption that if you work in a remote distribution environment, that you need documentation. But I can't disagree more. I think no matter what kind of company you work in, hybrid, in person, remotely, it doesn't matter, the industry even. I feel like asynchronous documentation and asynchronous accessible onboarding, right? To do that knowledge transfer should be the bare minimum, that it should be expected that anyone can access asynchronous information and knowledge no matter where they're located. And I think to me, that's nearly that first step to stop the horror stories, right? To like start course correcting. And that's something in my market locally. So I live in this beautiful tech bubble like you at Uji, right, where we have this global tech SaaS environment. We can build all these cool things. But here in my local environment, I don't have that bubble. In my local South African network, I still think that is such a gigantic challenge in terms of just understanding the difference between here's your onboarding pack versus like, here's great accessibility of where to find these things. And you can always refer back to it. You don't need to memorize anything. So yeah, so happy you mentioned that knowledge transfer and docs aspect.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, it has to be there. Yeah.
I love how you both think about onboarding and the perspective you've got. I think a lot of people teams view onboarding through more of like an employee experience lens, and we all want that warm, fuzzy like feeling when we join a new company, and like there's a lot of human connection that we need to sort of think about here that AI maybe can't do. But I've always talked about like onboarding actually being more of a commercial opportunity for the business. Like you have this opportunity to like as a people team, which you don't always have this opportunity to feel like you're doing, to actually impact business performance here by shortening that time for that people take to ramp up to start. I hate this word, but like think about like productivity, etc.
Yeah.
I hate stats, but there's like some amazing stuff that I've seen out there around like how effective onboarding processes improve productivity by like 70%. And also help with
Yeah.
things like retention and all that sort of stuff. I'm not here to throw stats at people, but ultimately, like you've talked about day one, Raf, I sort of think you go even further here and start
Mm.
with employee handbooks, etc. There's no reason why you can't start sharing this information before day one and people start ramping up before that. I actually think it starts at like the interview process and the job application process. If you've got these open handbooks that people can start reading and absorbing about your ways of work and your culture, etc. So, yeah, I think like reframing this a little bit also to think about this as a commercial opportunity for the business rather than just a people experience one, I think is a really important thing for me personally anyway. So interesting that some of the examples you shared are like ironically heavily focused on human error or like things that humans could and should be doing better. Want to obviously like focus on AI as much as possible as well, but there are opportunities with AI to support the human side of this as well, to remove friction, to take over a little bit, so that maybe people could spend more time doing those human things. What are those things? I'd love to hear, like, Raf, you're like immersed in this at the moment with your product, but also Nadia, I'm sure you're doing a lot around this as well. Like, love to hear a little bit from you both around AI and like what opportunities you're seeing presented around onboarding.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, really, I like to always go back to the problem, to the actual pain, right? And the way that we see it is that when it comes to getting someone to perform at their best, we see that there's a very clear rupture between those that have the knowledge and those that need to be acquiring that knowledge, right? So essentially, leaders, they're immersed in the day to day, right? They don't have the time to be repeating themselves over and over again, jumping on Zoom calls every time they need to onboard an individual or a group of people. They also don't have the time, the budget, basically, to be training people on a day to day most of the times, especially when we're talking about mid market startups, scale ups. And lastly, they have no knowledge to be necessarily stopping and documenting things and building training around things. And then on the other side, we have our learners who, if we want to have them ramping up in 1 to 2 months' time max, they are not going to be reading through 70-page PDFs. They're not going to be on long workshops for 2 weeks. They're not going to be having that frequent support, especially that we used to have before the pandemic when we were all in the office and now we're all hybrid or remote. So at the end of the day, I really believe that it's just really a matter of helping the leaders to pass on that knowledge as fast as possible, and in the way that not doesn't add any sort of extra work to their plates, because if not, they're just not going to do it, and that leads to the bad feedback loops that we have even before day one, as Adam was saying here, on how we're onboarding our people. Adding a few more stats there, we have been seeing a lot of low company alignment, where teams are just basically wasting 20 to 30% of their work week time, essentially because they're searching for answers. They're trying to find how to follow a particular process. And then when they don't follow that process because they didn't know how to find it, they reinvent the wheel. And that is the worst thing that a business can have, because people are just basically getting a process that's already existing, that we already know drives efficiency, but ultimately they're just trying to do it their own way. And then everyone else is doing things in different ways. Business becomes a mess, and that's where you start to see the leaky bucket there, when it comes to the productivity, the performance, the ROI that we have there with our teams. So yeah, I think this is a big thing that we've been seeing across the board. But more and more we see people teams, and not only people teams, okay? I'm talking about also sales enablement, customer success, compliance, all of these different areas in the business, really wanting to go from, okay, how do I actually turn this into a process where people acquire knowledge and put it into practice straight away? And that is really becoming effective to a point in which we're seeing some fantastic results across our customer base.
Yeah. So Raf, when you like immediately touched a few things that I love summarizing in the following way. Before I get to AI, so Adam, bear with me, I'm going there. Before I get to AI, when I think about onboarding and when you create onboarding, whether I'm doing advisory work, whether I'm scaling a company of 75 people to 1,000 in 1 year, or whether I'm just going to onboard people maybe 2 a month, doesn't matter to me, right? To me, I look at two things. The first one is the purpose of onboarding should be for that person that's being onboarded to never have to memorize anything, right? So they need to learn how to search. They should be able to find anything in the company, and they need to learn in your organization, how do I find it? So they need to become a search expert in whatever company they're working in. And if you haven't built the tools, accessibility, knowledge, or like beep, there's already a blocker. right? So first of all, if they can find information and if they don't have to memorize and they know how to search, that's the first part of onboarding that they should be able to do really well. And then the second part is if they don't understand the company, the product, the direction, that reinvention will just keep happening, right? Which is why I love channels like, is this known? Like there's a Slack channel or whatever comms tool you use that's called like, is this known? And someone can go and check there and search for things before they keep reinventing the wheel, etc. But I think those are the two things, right? It's like knowing where to find things and how to search through documentation or whatever platform systems, etc. And then understanding direction, narrative, product very, very clearly. Those things can't be guessed, confused. Even small things like ICP can't be confused in a company that's global distributed or even in office. So I think those to me are the two things. And then if I zone out a little bit and I think about this major component of AI, I start asking myself first the question of like, has the world missed the opportunity to just integrate tools really well? So first component of AI could be something as basic as automation and integration. And back in 2015, when I had to scale GitLab the first time from 75 people to like 800 in 1 year, I remember going, what if my team doesn't have 55 steps of just onboarding all these people? I have a team of 2. I need to onboard 800 people. That's a weird ratio to have. And we are doing this. There's no turning back now. And so what if I integrate these tools and start mapping like field items between my applicant tracking system and my HRIS, right? And build that. And when the person press hired, these things transfer and they never have to touch it manually again because they will make mistakes. I will make mistakes. Our best engineer will make mistakes. And I think it starts with that. Like if you have never done any integrations, that's a great place to start vibe coding now. If you have an MCP, what do they call it? MCP server, MCP API in the one and in the other, that's a vibe code opportunity for anyone on this call, right? The tool doesn't matter. Claude Code will be able to do that for you. So figuring out, do I need to integrate things, right? And then secondly, what can I automate? Is there something that automatically goes out through SSO? I mean, Google has single sign-on now, which is crazy. I used to like always default to Okta and even something more expensive. But like, what can I automate so that I don't have to remember this ever again? And then I think is AI. There's that plug opportunity where you can create the world's best video content to make that person feel like you're an expert because you say we're becoming an AI native product company, but we haven't even figured out how to create good internal content. There's the opportunity, right? Lars does this so well. This is not pushing everyone to Lars. This is just saying Lars did this so beautifully at Fruitist. They were like, we're becoming AI native. We're a blueberry company. We farm with blueberries. And he created this beautiful story and he used AI for that. Did he have to become an AI expert? I don't think so. I think he just decided, this is what I have to do. I'm going to vibe code and make this extra awesome. And it became a product. It became this, Adam mentioned, this consumer opportunity, not monetization of the people team, but it became this brand product. Customers are becoming attracted to Fruitist because of the way they're hiring. What if you can do that? If you're building products for people, I think it starts with that. And so I think this is missed opportunity right now. I had to recently tell one of our vendors, like, you still don't integrate with this other company? Like, how am I supposed to manually input leave every month, right? This is not okay. But am I going to build that integration myself? Am I going to find, borrow, steal, big vibe code, an integration between those two platforms? Heck yes. I'm not going to do it manually. I'm not going to spend 3 hours to figure out leave for our US employees. I think the opportunity starts there, whether it's with onboarding or even other HR practices.
Yeah. And then I don't like, there might be some folks in here who are like big on the people as product type mindset shift. And when you think about any sort of like product or tool that you pick up as a people person or even just outside of work, there's this job that company has to do to make it as sticky as possible. Like to make sure that you don't like check out mentally as a user. And I think like I think about that a little bit with the onboarding experience. Like if you don't want that drop off, like people leaving after 3 months because actually this has been horrendous and I still don't quite know how this company even works, etc. So I think like that's quite a cool reframe to have. But on the AI front, like there's two things that jump to mind for me, which I think are like worth thinking about from like a more practical point of view. So before you dive in and start maybe thinking about like automating this or doing that, a lot of people, teams, and companies still haven't worked out how are we allowed to, or how do we agree to even use AI in our business. So I know there's still a lot of people who are maybe at that stage, and like having to work out like an AI philosophy or some rules of engagement around how and when, like the tools we use, the processes we use if we want to introduce new tools, etc. Um, if you're there, I can share some stuff afterwards in a bit of a takeaway doc that could be super helpful to help navigate that and think through that. But once you are there, I think there's this really amazing opportunity to like actually map out and understand like where is the friction and where is the opportunity to utilize AI in our onboarding process. And this is like a really nice like journey like in any business to do. So I think at this point again you've got two options. You've got this option as a people team of saying, hey, we'll do it ourselves. We understand, we think, where a lot of the friction and problems are, so we'll just go and do it. But if you have the opportunity, I think there's a really nice chance to bring in a few other voices here as well. So like incorporate the people team, maybe some hiring managers, maybe some recent hires who've gone through that experience and spend some time actually doing like a little mini, we call it like hackathon type thing, but get people to contribute to a Miro board or something to help surface like where the frustration, where the friction is, and start thinking about where you might have those opportunities to either automate or augment with AI. I think that's like a really super powerful way to do that. Again, haven't got like a ready-made playbook as it were on that, but we've got a couple of resources I can share for like how you might think about approaching that. But I'd love to maybe just throw it back to you quickly, Nadia. Is that how have you previously sort of or currently thinking about doing that at Doist, for example, or previous companies?
Yeah. Yeah, I love the touch points and this map that you're thinking, and that's absolutely where I always start and looking at those breakpoints. I just want to comment on what you just said in terms of bringing other people in. My golden rule of onboarding is to have a onboarding satisfaction rating very early in the process to get the feedback loop a lot faster. I've seen this happen at the 3 month mark, the 60-day mark, what is it? 30, 60, 90-day mark. I'd love doing an onboarding check at 2 weeks, because if I don't have early feedback, and I do a second one at 30 days and then 60 days, etc. But if I get a feedback loop at 2 weeks, it gives me this powerful thing called iteration, which I always speak about and what I learned from all my engineering friends. But if you can keep making onboarding better and better in the moment, you are literally reducing your work. You are literally creating an opportunity where this AI component can help you today and not in 3 months or in Q2 2026. And so I think that's part of the magic, is where you get feedback from from new hires that tell you what's working and what isn't working and fix it there. A great example at Doist was all our new hires, when they join, immediately take all the previous habits of what they learned and they want to bring it with them, regardless of how we work, right? And so I think I created a 2 minute Loom video to basically just say what we expect in the first week and what we ask them to focus on. And to create that video literally took me 2 minutes, because I refuse to re-record videos. So not a perfectionist over here, if anyone wants to learn from me today. And we added it, and all of a sudden we took the complexity away of people coming in going, oh, I need to bring all my toolboxes and all my habits, whether they were good, bad, ugly, excellent, with me into this environment where I need to memorize, be perfect, do all these things, as Raf would say, like reinvent. And just go, what we need you to do in week 1 is learn these 2 things and get this one thing done, right? Expectations are clear. And then in week 2, this is what's going to happen. And so that was feedback. Someone said, like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do in my first week. I got all these lists of tasks, seeing that we're a Todoist task and productivity app. But it was so helpful to just hear that from a new hire and then making it better. And it took me 0 time. Next time, I'll probably like even use AI to create an even better video, and use all the content I've already created and make that better. That could be a future iteration, right? With a great summary, etc. So I just think the opportunity is just gigantic in terms of AI, and it speeds up doing the work that I genuinely have no more capacity. I'm a team of 3. No more capacity, no more brain power, no more time left to do, so that I can get to those high leverage, high capacity outcomes.
And that, like, I'm going to come back to like the knowledge transfer stuff. So I'd love to hear a bit from
Yeah.
from Raf on that. But like, as an example of like where a company that I've spoken to recently is like seen an opportunity to do something really experimental and cool in this space and just have some fun a little bit, frankly, with AI is I'll name them. It's not like I can't show you stuff, but there's a really cool company called InPlanet. We worked with the people team there a little bit, and they had this idea to basically build like their own internal like Duolingo type quiz app. And it wasn't just for onboarding, but there's a really great application there, I think, for onboarding. Effectively, like quizzing t the team members on like culture, ways of work, documentation, how we do stuff, like identifying knowledge gaps, and then sharing like things that they should go and read afterwards to bring them up to speed, etc. Really fun. They had a lot of fun building it. Didn't take long. It was like a vibe code thing. Um, but I said like this would be really cool to share with people in onboarding. Like you can very quickly spot like where are the gaps, what are people maybe not so clear on, where they maybe it could be clearer, and what can we share with them, rather than just presenting them with what could be a huge like overwhelming employee handbook sometimes. Getting them to read stuff they might already know. Like there are ways to tackle this from an onboarding point of view that from an iterative point of view with AI, like you could give to someone and they can start learning and filling in gaps without you having to get too stuck into that. So like just wanted to share that as an example of like thinking about some of the stuff you just said, Nadia, but also just thinking about Raf, like you're in this space from a knowledge transfer perspective, and I'd love to hear from you on how AI can help with this because this is something that I see a lot of people teams talk about is um, there is an overwhelming amount of knowledge transfer maybe sometimes to handle and again this is a prime opportunity. So like what's your thoughts on what's happening in this space or what the opportunities are to help?
Yeah, fantastic, Adam. So essentially, um, going back to my past lives, right, in the world of advertising, I wouldn't be just onboarded once to a particular job or role, especially because when you work in an advertising agency, you have like several different clients. And so you're kind of like being inducted every time you get a new account, if you know what I mean. And sometimes you're just moved into like a different team and you're taking care of a new client, but you have nothing to latch onto. You're just like completely lost. So that made me think of the opportunity of evergreen onboarding that's always up to date, so that you always have essentially knowledge at the tip of your fingerprints. Obviously, it's very, very hard to do that when you are essentially having to just keep on getting the business to achieve all of the KPIs and the metrics that you have put behind it and all of that good stuff. But now with AI, it's just so much easier to do that. So we essentially here at UJI have built an AI agent exactly for that, which is essentially being able to pull all of the data, all of the scattered information that you have across everything. And I'm saying everything like quite literally. Your Google Drive, Notions, slides, PDFs, Slack threads, recordings, WhatsApp even. And just having Liz, who's this agent, learn everything about your business to a point in which she can actually build all of that documentation, but also keep it up to date. So with a single prompt that you give her, you basically say, hey, we moved from Pipedrive to HubSpot as a CRM. And she'll basically magically bring all of that into the current form where people should be knowing about, because businesses, they change. They are always transforming. So we need to have that capacity to be keeping that all up to date as we go. So essentially, I'm a big believer in not just having onboarding as like a particular period. I don't care if it's 2 weeks, 3 months, 6 months, a year. I think we should always be onboarding ourselves on a day-to-day basis by keeping the knowledge fresh and always up to date and in the tip of our fingerprints, exactly like Nadia mentioned. So that is for me a very big opportunity, not only for people leaders, but also for any leader across any department, just being able to use AI to actually build efficient knowledge transfer to a point in which it's always up to date. Obviously, with every opportunity, there's a threat as well, which is just over automating to a point in which you risk like a human connection. And I think that is a big thing that we need to have in mind here as well. And a good example of this is, for example, this new feature that ChatGPT added onto the business accounts, which is basically a knowledge base for businesses. We went to give it a go the other day, and we just plugged in our Slack, and like we started UJI, like it was just the two of us in 2021, like just actually talking about everything that you talk about when you're a scrappy startup, but it's all still there, right? ChatGPT is pulling from all of that, but the business has changed so much from 2021 to 2025 that if I make that my knowledge base without any human connection and with any interaction with that, for sure you're going to be spreading outdated and inaccurate information. So there is a big risk there. And that's where I think the opportunity lies. Us as leaders being able to really leverage AI in a way where we are steering it to actually latch on to what really is important, what really is relevant, so that it's consistent and up to date. So that is my first opportunity there. The second opportunity essentially is just basically having each and every team member have personalized answers to their queries in a day-to-day basis. Again, how do you do this if everything is outdated, if everything is inconsistent, if if AI is latching on to something that is not up to date, right? Again, very, very hard. So leaders and humans have to be close to this so that we are always making sure that that is relevant and up to date. But if that is there, the easiest thing is to build something like Ori, like we did, which is the second AI agent that just really has access to all of that information and can give you that answer to a particular question on anything that you can imagine in a matter of a few seconds. So that's another big opportunity for me. And I think it always starts with the people, as I was really talking about with Luke from Sapien X. Big shout out to these guys as well. Adam was there the other day in London too, along with Giovanni from Humans. We were talking about people leaders being the advocates of AI in the workspace, because at the end of the day, everyone will be thinking about AI in their particular vertical. In my view, people and HR is the most horizontal department of them all. So you can actually touch on each and every one of those particular verticals. So if you're helping all of these different departments, for example, with this knowledge management, I can rest assure you that you as a people leader will be seeing amazing results, amazing ROI that will get you to become more strategic, that will get you that seat on the leadership table. And that's what I'm a big advocate of. I'm really, really bullish about this. What do you think, Nadia?
Right. So Pauline had a nice question, and it ties actually beautifully to what you just said. And it gave me this like reminder of how I see a culture of documentation. So Pauline, thanks for your question. Pauline asked, like, my struggle is to keep documentation up to date when it's not my team responsible for it or me, right? And so a culture of documentation, maybe this will help all of you to implement this at your companies, and maybe it won't. If it's not in the handbook, it doesn't exist. Like, we were so bullish about this at GitLab, Remote, Camunda, currently at Doist, right? And I think that was because this wasn't pandemic spin-off companies, but remote first from day one, it meant that it was first principles thinking. We didn't reinvent the wheel of what other companies thought about it. We had to think about what do we want it to look like. And so maybe first tip is start thinking about what is your culture of documentation, and is that something you need to address with your leadership team or hold your CEO accountable for, or your ops or you accountable for. If you're the DRD, set the rule. If it's not in the handbook, it doesn't exist, so that knowledge is also fresh. But something else, Raf, I am a ruthless archive and delete person. I do not keep old documentation. If the single source is outdated, or if it's been replaced, that old version history, the system, the tool that you're using for your docs is responsible to keep the version history, not you. And so delete, archive, and remember the version history is there. If you don't have the luxury of version history, I think that's okay too, as long as the current version is the real version. Don't focus on the old version. You can explain context to someone that says, have you thought about, or is this known? Over and over again, but you can't get the docs back if you don't have anything or it's not up to date. And iteration, again, hate to beat this drum, but if you iterate on your documentation and live in a call, update something that a decision is made on, and not leave it as an entire task for afterwards, it's done. Our people team love doing this. While we're talking or having a work session or have completed something, we're literally already updating the docs seconds later. And then we don't have to think about it again and just announce it if even necessary. The single source of truth is our docs hub. And so that knowledge can't get old. But it's up to someone, right, to say this is the culture of our knowledge and documentation, and we're no nonsense about it. And that does take courage.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I love that. And I think I don't know if it's still in there, but that was a page in Remote's handbook, it's cultural documentation in their documentation, which has always been one of my favorites. And again, I've replied to this as well, Pauline, but I think carrot and stick type mentality here. I think sometimes you have to just take the stick to folks and make them genuinely care about this. And I haven't seen many companies actually include health of documentation in performance conversations. And if that's going to stop someone from getting promoted or get a pay rise, suddenly they'll care about it. And if you genuinely care about it as a business, you could include that. I've done the similar thing with one-to-ones with managers. If this is part of their performance conversations, suddenly you'll find they won't miss a single one-to-one. So sometimes just really making it very clear to people that this is a core part of who we are as a business and what we care about, and it's as much as an important part of how you work as results can help a lot. So think about that from a performance conversations point of view as well. We are we're not far off wrapping up actually, folks, which is time's flown by. Any questions folks have got, add them into chat. We can cover them off in the last 5-10 minutes that we've got. Love to hear from you all if there's any challenges, questions, thoughts you've got around onboarding. Just while we're thinking about wrapping up as well, we'll spend a couple of minutes, a minute, just trying to summarize some of the practical takeaways and shares that maybe you can take back to businesses. But maybe it's for some fun. Raf, Nadia, would love to hear a little bit about what your perfect onboarding journey might look like. Don't feel like you've got to be too granular, but some of the really key things that you think are vital or important to impact. Over to you. Would love to hear from you.
Yeah, fantastic. I think I just wanted to touch on a particular question that I saw here coming from Pauline Taylor, which is her struggle in keeping things up to date. And I think that is a very, very big challenge that everyone has, because how do you keep things up to date when you need to be moving the business forward, right? And that is always the big thing. So I'm a big believer in a document as you do culture, like Nadia mentioned, you just archive the things that are old. You just make sure that you're updating things as you go. But we actually found a way of helping leaders to be reminded that they need to update things. So at the end of the day, this AI agent, Liz, she comes back time to time again and asks you, hey, has anything changed on this process? can I help you update this standard operating procedure, for example? So back to the pipe drive to HubSpot example, for example, there, if I had in the last 2 months changed my CRM platform to HubSpot, but I forgot to document that, and then 100 to 200 sales leaders and sales teams, SDRs, AEs, etc., do not have that particular knowledge of the new HubSpot platform, for example, how am I keeping things going? And I think it just becomes a real matter of the AI actually learning how fast things change in that business, to a point in which they can actually come back and ask you particular things, like almost as if they were your like instructional designer or L&D partner, sitting on your shoulder, like that parrot that the pirate has just beside them, if you know what I mean. So that is something that I have become a big passionate of, and I think it's just really helping everyone move in a more consistent manner. So yeah, go ahead, Nadia. Sorry.
Yeah, so Raf, I'm fully aligned with that. I think there's been a lot of questions and asks around tips and tools, right? So I'll give you one tip. If I had to rethink onboarding right now, no matter what LLM or AI tool that you're using, figure out if it has an option like a Gemini Gem does. You can do so much without vibe coding and without technical skills and without cost if you're already in a Google Workspace, and build a gem on coaching people through their onboarding, right? So that's one tip. If I can rethink onboarding today and I have zero budget and I'm already in a Google Workspace and I have no engineers and no vibe coding experience, I would learn how to prompt really well. I would get AI to help me prompt even better. So I would build a Gemini Gem, which is, by the way, super easy to do. And I would get that to coach every person through their entire onboarding journey, and being able to ask questions maybe to that gem. So have a predetermined FAQ that I got from all my previous hires and all the questions I could think of and all the answers built in, so they can ask that gem questions and the gem can coach them in the right direction. Have you completed compliance training? How did it go? What would you change? That feedback loop goes back, right? So I think I'd start with that. And if I think about the journey, and not to go granular and spend too much time on this, Adam, what you said in terms of your journey starts at hiring. Like, this is why I'm launching a public handbook. So a hot tip, our public handbook will launch hopefully this week, if I can pull it off by tomorrow. We're nearly there. And every candidate, every customer is going to look at that and go, oh, this is why I should be working at Doist. Their vision, mission, product, their performance processes live, etc. So my attraction bar is going to be probably double, triple the size what it is now. And it starts with that candidate. That onboarding experience is starting with the candidate and the applicant that's interested in working for us. And if you tell people how you work from that early on, chances of I don't want to use the term mishire, but chances of hiring someone that doesn't understand your expectations is much lower, right? And so I would start there, and then I would fast forward just quickly. Think about the time as a people person. If some of these folks on the call is in human resources, people, ops, etc., think of the time a hiring manager came to you and said to you, you know what, we have a mishire. And think about how you reacted then, and think about what I'm telling you now. How often do you ask the question, what happened during onboarding? I always ask that. When someone comes to me and says, this is not working out, and I'm like, oh no, they're ready to press the offboarding button. And I'm just like, what happened during the first week of onboarding, the second week of onboarding, pre-onboarding? Tell me what happened. I don't probe. I just want to know. And all of a sudden, all my answers starts there, and all my accountability levers then starts, where I can be like, I don't think that went very well. What would you have changed? What can we do now? I've turned a lot of very negative experiences around in this way. So I think there's also that. So if I could rebuild onboarding, I would start looking at it from, I would say, right at the start to right at the end, and then start rebuilding it backwards. Hope that helps. Maybe it's things that you haven't thought about before. Raf, over to you. What would you do?
I really love the idea of the sort of like whole business in a nutshell pack for new hires to have access even before they start. I think that is definitely something that every business should have, and it's so easy to do, right? Like nowadays, really, even the design part, which is the side of what a perfectionist would actually really want to make sure is there, can be done 100% with AI, right? Like, so there's no excuses. You just need to have that in place, and you can do it like without spending much. So I think that is a first thing for sure. I haven't been seeing businesses kind of like doing training throughout the interview process, which is quite crazy if you stop to think, because out of those 10 people that are going through the interview process, you're probably going to hire one, maybe two, but I can see results there. It's already happening. So obviously it's more for the bigger businesses that can actually afford that sort of thing, but it's something that's there. And us ourselves as like mid-market businesses, for example, what can we learn from that? I think a very good example is that pre-pack that Nadia just mentioned, just even seeing if people are reading and acquiring knowledge, and when you have like that second interview with them, have they ramped up a bit since that first interview and that second one? Like that gives a very good indicative as well as of, is this person curious? Is this person aligned with our culture? Is their cultural fit really? Has this person have had the opportunity to learn more of this industry, this market, this competitive environments? Like that sort of thing really can give you a hunch if that will be a mishire or not. I think that is a big thing. And then from then on, I think it's just really a matter of using artificial intelligence and human intelligence and bringing that together. Obviously you need to be there for people. It's not just giving them an AI and thinking that they're going to be the most satisfied onboarded new hire that could ever have. But ultimately, if you have the means to get them to be self-led onboarded and having your very own way of actually supporting that person, holding them by the hand, at least in those first 3 months, I think we are getting closer and closer to actually having that sort of 1 to 2 month ramp up that we all see as the holy grail metric there. So at the end of the day, for me, it's really doing the default when people start, like having everything that is there, and then not just like the nice little gift pack where there's a t-shirt, a water bottle, and so forth, and saying, hey, welcome. That doesn't work. I prefer you not to have that gift pack, but actually do all of those things that we're talking here. Having knowledge at the tip of their fingerprints and helping them feel confident to go into a meeting and talk and get themselves out there. I think that is the most important thing. That is a very good KPI. Is that new hire going into a meeting with people that they don't know and being able to speak from their past experiences, from the experiences that they've had in that first month, that those first 2 months. And that will really come off the back of great knowledge management powered by AI and great human support, great human intelligence that comes in line with that. So yeah, I am always just a message away if anyone would like to ever pick my brain and have any help there when it comes to using AI for that particular need. But also hope that we've been able to shed some light on some important elements that we believe have helped us not to go to those horror stories that we talked about in the beginning, but also that led us to some success stories that we've been seeing across the industry.
Awesome. Thank you, Raf. We are out of time, folks. So I'm going to wrap up really quickly. There's a takeaway doc on the way with loads of tools, ideas, stuff that we talked about. So you will not miss out, I promise. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for joining, and hopefully see you all again soon. Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.